Well, good morning and welcome to another episode of Military Mondays. I'm here with Landon Shaw, and we've got an amazing show for you again today. We have a special guest, Air Force veteran Michael Patterson. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Wonderful.
Doing outstanding. So just so everybody gets a little glimpse into who Mike Patterson is, he spent 9 years serving our country in the Air Force. Left the Air Force as a staff sergeant, and in the Air Force, that's an E5, doing logistics, which obviously that's how every branch, it's so critical to have your best and brightest in those logistics, being able to make things happen on the battlefield and to and from the battlefield in the Air Mobility Command as a transport specialist. So, Mike, before we get started, just wanted to thank you for your service to our country and what you continue to do at Auburn University.
Thank you.
So take us through your 9 years in a nutshell of what your service in the Air Force looked like.
Sure. Joined the Air Force in April of 2008. And if you remember back to that time, it's when the economy was really starting to take a turn for the worse. Guys have a lot of patriotic stories about the join after 9/11. I wish I had that. Mine was because I had a child on the way and I had to find some way to provide for her. So reached out to actually all the branches. Started with the Marines and the Army because they were closest to my hometown of Crossville, Alabama.
Okay.
Found out they had delayed entry programs. I was really ready to kind of get on the next thing smoking to a basic training location. So I actually had a friend of mine who had told me there was an Air Force recruiter right down the road, a little bit out of the way. Went down and talked with him. Kind of signed up through them as well. Had about a couple of weeks went by, and I contacted all three of the recruiters, and I said, guys, I'm ready to be going like yesterday, so whoever can get me the slot, that's who I'm going with. Lucky for me, the Air Force called me back the next week. Guy had a fall and broke his leg, so they had an open slot, but I wasn't guaranteed a job. So I went in as open mechanical, kind of give you a job once you get through basic training.
That
you
open
put down on your
contract,
list what you'd
yeah.
like. Yeah, so I didn't even know what job I was going to get. Decided to do the 4 years instead of 6 because that gave me a chance to change careers a little earlier. If I didn't like the job I was in, it just gave me a little bit of flexibility.
Right.
Get in, get told I'm going to be a aerial transporter under Air Mobility Command. And I said, cool, what's that? And,
They got a lot of fancy job titles, but we never really know what it means until we get there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the guys told me, it was like, oh, you work in like mail rooms and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, great, got it. Come to find out, mailroom is not part of it. There's a very small piece that we do with the mail. So went to the training for that. Found out really what it was about. Really, that job is to move passengers, cargo, the beans, bullets, and people to get them into the fight. So short run there. Do 6 to 8 weeks figuring the job out, and then find out my first duty station was going to be in New Jersey. And I'm a small town kid from Alabama, and New Jersey sounded a little scary to me, a little far away. So I reached out and was like, hey, can anybody, what can I do? Well, if you find somebody else that has a spot that they want to swap out, you guys can do an assignment swap. Okay. Luckily, there was a guy who was, his original orders were for Pope Air Force Base, North Carolina, attached to Fort Bragg, working for the 82nd Airborne. And I took it, ended up over there. 4 years with the 82nd, doing a lot of the exercises and things like that. Did my first 2 deployments out of there, and then moved over to Little Rock, where I started out in the LRS doing cargo and stuff, and ended up getting a little lucky and started working for the 34th CTS, this Combat Training Squadron, and they put on the green flag operations that worked down at Fort Polk for the Army's JRTC program. Got into that and really, really enjoyed it, being able to teach guys how to do our job downrange so they can operate efficiently and safely, doing the training areas. And then that's kind of where I'd gotten out. I knew that it was kind of my time, and I was trying to figure out what to do. Auburn University was sprung on me, and I'm very fortunate that it was, because my plan actually never was to go back to college. I got to give a huge props to our duty officer, Mr. Major Wagner. If you're listening to this by any chance, appreciate you. He had pulled me off to the side and asked me what I was going to do. Told him I was going to buy a farm and start doing farming, and he kind of pushed me to the point. It was like, apply to one school, see what happens. And he asked me where I would apply to if I was going to. Told him Auburn was the only place that I would even dream of applying to. He said, put it in, let's see what happens. Put in that application, and a couple of weeks later, it got accepted. So, kind of had to do a turnaround and figure all that out. But to kind of make a long story short on that, what I ended up deciding to do was transferring over to the reserves for 1 year. So I got eight on active duty and one in the reserves. Was down the street at Maxwell Air Force Base, and started my college career at Auburn University during that time.
Beautiful. So one of the things that I keyed in on, and when we talk to almost every veteran, there's at least one person, there's probably a multitude of mentors throughout our career, but there's generally one or two key individuals that really played a pivotal point in the direction in either our career was going to go or what our life after our military service was going to look like. So for that, for you, it sounds like Major Wagner was that individual that really challenged you to say, okay, what are you passionate about, and are you just doing something, or are you going to find an opportunity, your new identity, through opportunities that you don't even know that exist yet?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely. Major Wagner, he might be Colonel Wagner now. I'm actually not sure. I haven't talked to him in a while. He definitely made a huge impact for me, kind of steering me and teaching me that I've got these benefits that I can use. And I think that's a problem that a lot of folks run into. They've got these benefits. It seems like it's too daunting to use them. It's difficult to get in. I'm not a college type guy. Those are all things that I said to him whenever he told me that.
Right.
And that's when he challenged me. He said, well, if you had one place you had to apply to, where would it be? And there was no questions there. It was Auburn University. And he said, look, if you apply and you don't get in, you can still do your same plan.
Right.
But if you apply and you get in, there's a choice to be made. You don't have to make that choice, but at least you have options.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely,
he made by far the biggest difference in the trajectory of my life. I can guarantee I wouldn't be sitting here right now speaking with you if it wouldn't have been for him.
Absolutely. That's amazing, and it's great to hear that continues to happen and pushes our great veterans to really help find that identity outside of the service. So let me transition into that actual transition period and what that looked like coming from the service. Obviously, you went from active duty to the reserves for the year. So in yours, it's a little bit of a step down. So you didn't completely lose that camaraderie of being with your fellow airmen. But tell me about what that transition looked like for you and your family, because now, how old was your child at the time when you transitioned out?
So when I was getting out, my girls would have been around 9 and 7, still pretty young. So it was definitely interesting, and I think the biggest thing for me, as far as my girls went, is that they could start to have a little bit of stability. They could kind of remain somewhere, and we don't have to worry about moving.
Absolutely.
I know that it's always a concern that I had every time we would pick up to move. Worried about, okay, what am I doing to them long term? These types of things, and there was definitely some pieces of that helped me make the decision to separate and go on my way. But one of the biggest things was to try and find some type of stability for them, because I felt like that's what they needed. the transition period for me, a little bit different. It actually took away the stability, and it changed everything. You know, like you said, I had that year in the reserves, so I got to kind of, you know, do a little bit of a step down as far as being every single day active duty down to the, you know, weekend reserve role.
Right.
I did it for a year. I never really quite felt like it was the place for me, just because of the way the missions are different. Active duty, I was used to being go, 100 miles an hour all day long. You know, there was never, you know, dead periods to fill in. There was always something to be done.
There's definitely some culture shock, right?
Yeah, there was a huge difference there. You know, it was, you know, not necessarily a bad thing, just wasn't something that I was used to. Yeah, I knew after a year that it really wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I only did the 1 year in it. But as I left the reserves, there was this overwhelming feeling of, well, who are you? What are you going to do? You know, what's your purpose? And I didn't have answers for these questions. You know, I spent a good year just trying to figure out how to answer one of those. Well, who am I? Well, I'm Michael, obviously, but, you know, what does that mean? Because for most of my adult life, it meant that I was a member of the Air Force. I had guys that counted on me, and at that point, I didn't have any of that anymore. And it definitely took a toll on me. It took some time for me to figure out how to answer these questions, and it's really where the Veterans Resource Center at Auburn University comes into play, because you've got so many of these guys that are kind of going through the same things, and you have these conversations about, well, hey, what, you know, what's going on with you? What are you doing? How are you, you know, coping with these things? And it's odd because just having that space within a university setting where all of us could kind of come together, it opened up dialogues, and we were able to have conversations about these things and really kind of be vulnerable about some of it, because that's kind of what we do. We as service members, we kind of act like the knight on Monty Python's Flying Circus. Every time they get hit, you say, "'Tis but a flesh wound." When
right.
In reality, you know, you've lost something, and there's a piece of you that's not there anymore.
Right.
And that's what a lot of us tend to do. We try to internalize these things and, you know, deal with them on our own. And it didn't ever help me to do it that way. So finding somebody to be able to have these conversations with, it definitely made a huge turning point. And getting involved with the Student Veterans Association, just to do other things for veterans, it changed my mind on a lot of those things, because I thought when I had got out, I thought, well, I'm gonna stop kind of using the military as a crutch. I don't want to say, hey, I'm a service member, you know, do something for me, because that's kind of what it felt like to me.
Right.
But finding that place to where I could be involved and do things for other service members and make sure that their transition and their time and, you know, their family are well taken care of, the same way that mine was when I first got there. It was a huge passion, and it made all the difference in the world for me.
So and that's incredible, Mike, because what I'm hearing, and we hear this a lot, and obviously after my 20 years in the Marine Corps, I experienced the same things. It was a very different path for me, but we have a purpose and a mission that we're always working towards while we're in the service, whether it's training evolutions, whether it's deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever it may be. And then you know what your why is. You know that you're living a life of service to an organization that their mission is greater than your own. And when you hang that up, so many veterans lose their identity, and now they're just out in this chaotic civilian world because we're very used to, we're institutionalized, right? You've got a plan of the day. Everybody is trained the same way through recruit training and basic training, through the different schools. They all have a very similar mindset. And then you get out into this civilian world, and it seems completely chaotic because everybody didn't go through the same experience. Everybody doesn't have a shared experience that they can reach back to and be able to utilize moving forward, saying, okay, this is how we approach a problem. Now you've got 1,000 different versions of how to approach that problem, right? So finding that why is crucial. And what really the distinction between what I would consider a success story like yours and someone that's going a different path, internalizing, like you said, all the issues and trying to figure it out on their own. They generally are going to go down a path that's very unsuccessful in all the problems that come with it. And those groups, like the Auburn Student Veterans Association there at y'all's Veteran Resource Center, is one of those critical groups at y'all's university that really makes a profound difference in the veteran student population. Just finding the bonding and that camaraderie through the same not knowing what your purpose and identity is anymore and having those discussions it's therapy, right? I mean, just talking with our brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it even goes like even a layer deeper than that. Once you get out, you've had the exact, regulation and specifications on what clothes to wear, how to cut your hair, how to, maintain your time, how, you've got all of these things in place where there's no guesswork. There's no vagueness about it.
Right.
Exactly, you're going to get your hair cut every week. You're going to wear the same uniform unless the uniform of the day changes. And in that case, you just switch to that. And, all of these things are so laid out for you. And then you get all of this freedom is probably the wrong word to use for that. But
right.
You get a lot of your choices back, and it becomes a little overwhelming. It's kind of like the same situation, and I'm not relating veterans to children, but if you give a child a choice, 10 toys to pick, it's really hard for them to make a decision, and it's kind of the same thing that I felt like I had all these choices in front of me, and I was like, well, who am I, and what choice am I supposed to make, and how am I supposed to go through life? Am I this person still, or that? And those types of things, having people there that, had kind of already gone through that first bit, had already felt I've got to buy, all new clothes because I've got 2 pairs of jeans, 2 pairs of shorts, and my uniform,
Picking clothes for work is very simple. I mean, you don't have to pick. Somebody's telling you. So just having a wardrobe is overwhelming. What am I wearing today? I mean, now I have 14 shirts. What color am I wearing today? I don't know. I mean, what's my feeling? So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem minute in retrospect, but at the time, especially in my own head, that was a huge deal to me. It was, what is the appropriate thing to wear in these situations? Because, for the last 9 years, I've known I'm in boots and utes, or I'm in, service dress. There's
right.
or PT gear. There's no guesswork in there. So, and as I've looked back on it now, I realize how small and size that problem really was. But at the time, it mattered to me. It was a huge thing. So
absolutely, it's another stressor on your plate.
Yeah, absolutely. And having those folks there that kind of was like, listen, you need to go down here to this store and pick up some new clothes because you look like a boot. I got told that a couple of times, like, fix yourself because you look like you just got out.
Right.
And that was, it was awesome for me. It was perfect, exactly what I needed.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about the Veteran Resource Center there at Auburn University, because obviously this played a major part in your transition, and obviously I know a little bit more than what our viewers or listeners are going to have privy to. So tell me how you ended up getting more involved in what the mission for that group, that center is, and what the mission for the Auburn Student Veterans Association is.
Sure. So the way that I kind of came about knowing the guys down at the Veterans Resource Center and the Student Veterans Association kind of goes back to that first conversation where, I was planning on getting out and buying a farm and starting farming. Well, once I got accepted and found out, okay, well, now I've got this other option, and, it was a dream of mine to be able to go to Auburn University. I never thought they'd be foolish enough to accept me into the university, So I had to make a big change there. And the first thing was, okay, you're accepted. Now where are you going to live? So I just made a couple of phone calls real quick. My mom was one of the first ones I'd called, and I kind of, ran the idea by her. And I was like, I got to figure out, what the cost of living is down there. And she just stopped me right there. And she goes, your stepbrother lives down there and he's going to the university, right? And I said, no, I had no idea he was there. So I gave him a call, and I was like, hey, can you give me an idea of like how much I'd need to budget to, to live there? And he said, well, right now, my roommate just moved out, so it costs you $250 a month if you come down and you just want to move in with me. I was like, wow, so this is all just going to piece together. I was like, okay, well, now the next thing, I got to find a job because I can't rely on a fixed income because I got kids. I got to make sure I've got the money. As I turned in my paperwork to get processed as a VA student, I had noticed something on the website about VA work studies, and I thought, well, let me ask this question because it's tax-free, so it's a little bit more money. And I just had asked the lady who was working there, Miss Robin Westbrook. I was like, hey, you guys have positions open. I'm very interested in, applying. And the conversation was, yeah, we've got something open. You want to start on Monday?
Now, that's what I'm talking about, a great interview. You crushed it.
Yeah, it was perfect because everything just fell into line for me to go to Auburn. It was almost as if it was tailor-made for me to do. Yeah, so, I get in down there, start working this job, and I meet the officers of the Student Veterans Association. It was the first week or two. They were having their monthly meeting, and they were doing the election of the new officers. And there were 8 of us in the meeting, and they were electing 5 officers. So it was real small when we first started.
Right.
It was real tiny.
Got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere, and that's kind of the evolution of these programs, and that's the hardest thing is to get participation and kind of get your voice out because there are a lot of guys, when they get out, they don't want much to do with the military. Either they're bitter about something, disgruntled, they don't, or they just I've done my time. I don't need anything else to do with that. Kind of the way I felt. I don't want to use it as a crutch anymore because I'm a person, and military, while I'm proud of it, was just part of my part of my past.
And Mike,
I want to move on.
That seems to be a common thing. So I'm a civilian and working with veterans. That seems to be a common theme too, where they went in, they did their service, and they don't want to ask for those pieces of help. They don't get what they need from the VA because they feel that somebody else deserves it, or they don't want to.
Oh yeah.
They just don't want to use it as though that's what they went in there for, and it's very interesting to see even with this going into school how you were apprehensive about that just because you didn't want to seem like you were using it as a crutch.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I had seen guys in positions that I knew they needed help.
Yeah.
As a logistics guy, I had put countless people on aircraft that were going home with less than what they came with, or they were going home for the last time. So there was a lot of those type of folks that I felt like my problems were minuscule compared to theirs. I didn't want anything to take away. I'm fine. I'm upright. I got all my digits. I can figure this out for myself. And that's really how I felt about it, And it wasn't necessarily because of any particular thing other than just seeing, there's some folks out here that really do need help, and if I'm in here, banging away, I'm taking away time from them. So, that was one of the major things that I had on my mind when I first got out.
And I can tell you, Mike, that is, like Landon said, that is such an issue. It is an epidemic across all of the veteran community that we naturally, because we're so geared to serving others, we never place ourselves, we rarely place ourselves, you
never become the
as a priority.
Yeah.
We place everybody else. We always have this mindset of somebody else deserves it more. So I'm just going to figure it out the hard way and not take advantage of the opportunities that these organizations are predicated on serving exactly you and everybody else in that same situation. It doesn't matter if you're a AAA amputee. It doesn't matter if you have PTS. You have earned these benefits, and
Absolutely.
Us reaching out and saying, how can I use it? It makes us go from a life of selflessness to make us feel sort of selfish. And
it does, but there's a piece of it that's taken me some time to learn. A little bit of selfishness isn't a bad thing because you have to work on you and make yourself better before you can help anybody else.
Absolutely.
And it took me some time to figure that out, because I thought, I'm supposed the same way, I'm supposed to have my bills in order, my child care plan in line, like all these things need to be taken care of. So, I don't get, chewed out because I wasn't taking care of my responsibilities. And that's kind of how I felt like I've got to do this. Because if I go ask somebody else for it, it's not me doing it anymore. It's somebody else doing it for me.
Right.
And that felt dirty to me, sort of,
Yeah. And you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you aren't physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally in line and healthy, you're not able to provide those same things in a healthy manner to those individuals that we see going, they need more help than I do. I've got a better situation. And if you look at it, how your plan laid out, walking into the university, getting enrolled, getting accepted, all of a sudden you've got somewhere to live. All of a sudden you walk into this job, that just reinforces even more, man, I had it pretty easy in hindsight, even though you were stressing about all of these things.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody had the same opportunity or experience that you did, so you sort of feel guilty about that whole transition or taking advantage of things that you actually earned.
Yeah, there's definitely a little piece of that. And like you were saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, and that was what I was feeling like I was trying to do. I was taking from other people's cup. Other people, needed their cup full, and they couldn't afford to give it to me, so I needed to, do this on my own side. But, that if you turn that situation around, which is what I finally figured out, it's if I am able to keep my bucket full because I'm taking care of myself, then I've got more to scoop out to all these other folks who do need that help. So it's not just about you taking care of you. It's about you taking care of you that way that you can help those others out, because you can't do it if you don't have it. If you don't have it in you, you can't do it for somebody else. And that was the biggest lesson that I've learned through all of this.
And that's a huge lesson. I mean, so the Student Veterans Association is a 501c3, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so what is it that they actually provide? Are there physical things, benefits that help the veterans there on campus?
Absolutely. We've got so much stuff. I'm going to rattle off a few things soon. Whatever you find interesting, we'll talk about first. We have a free to members textbook library for any student to utilize as long as they're a member. We have golf tournaments that we hold in the spring and the fall that are meant for networking type of opportunities. We've got our Operation Iron Ruck, which is an event that we do in collaboration with the University of Alabama to bring awareness to veteran suicides, in which we walk from one stadium to the other. It's about 151 miles with stuff in our packs. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a second, more of the details. We've got our professional clothing locker, which if somebody comes in, they've got an interview, they don't have clothes to wear, they go in there and pick them up. If they bring them back, cool. If they don't, it's theirs. Use it to get a job. That's kind of the way we feel about it. We're not going to ask you to return any of this stuff. Take it, get your job, and get on with the next part of your life and take care of yourself. And that's what we want to see them do, is use that for that. So we've got all of those programs. We have our Veteran Success Program, which is a mentorship full-year program where the student who is awarded that gets a $5,000 scholarship and is paired with a mentor in the field that they want to go into after graduation. And they spend that year, talking with them, doing these different meetings. Before COVID, we were having luncheons that we would have everybody come into. Now it's a little more virtual. We're just making do with what we've got at the moment. But all of those programs, together, to me, make the biggest impact for student veterans here at Auburn University. Like, the GI Bill is great, all these things, but one of the main things that I had no idea about was writing resumes, cover letters, tailoring them to the jobs that you're going to apply to, dressing for I knew to dress well, wear a suit and tie. I didn't know much other than that because my service dress was the exact same every time, I didn't have to, pair and make things work. So, getting those types of advice and those pieces from those programs were incredible for me to advance to the next stage. And that's what we hope. We're constantly trying to add more stuff to it to make it beneficial and fill in the gaps that we have, because we know that there's areas that we could put something to. We just got to figure out what those areas are, and then we're all the time adding stuff in to fill those gaps.
Well, I'll tell you this: the moment that you said a textbook program, that really made my ears poke up, because I remember how much those textbooks were, and having to join a university and having to go get a $200 textbook. You're just going like, I don't really have this.
Exactly.
Hey, can I
if you're
borrow
taking
yours?
over, if you're taking over a certain number of credits, and your GI Bill is only going to pay for $1,000 a year in books.
Oh, that'll go
you
away
get
quick.
To the second semester. Yeah, and you get to the second semester and you've used up, say $650 of that. You got $350 left, and I can tell you, I don't remember very many semesters that I could get all my books for $350.
No, sir.
So that really does help to kind of fill that gap, because what we saw was a need. Because most guys who get out and they come back to school, most of them aren't single. They've got wives and kids at the house that, that money helps feed them.
Absolutely.
So if we could find a way to prevent that additional cost through the program, that's what we try to do. And it's kind of funny how that whole program got started. So I was there in 2017, and somebody had transferred in from the University of Alabama. And if you don't know this, Auburn and Alabama are huge rivals.
I was going to get into that on the Iron Ruck, but it's
we don't get along about much at all, other than the fact that the other team is the worst in the state. That's about the only thing that we can agree on. Yeah. So they came in and then said, "Hey, do you guys have a textbook rental location?" The University of Alabama has one, and my ears perked when I heard that, and I said, "No, but we're gonna."
No, but ours is going to be 10 times bigger than theirs.
Yeah, I said there's no reason that they get to have one and we can't, So
Absolutely.
I started figuring, and I started working with a bunch of guys who are amazing at helping me get this piece of a program put together. And we went out and we kind of asked for some help on funding for it, because we were going to do a self-help project and just build these shelves to put books on, which we had, I think, 40 books, to begin with. That people would just kind of come in and drop off, and instead of selling them for $5, it was just more worth it to them to leave them in the office and somebody else could use it.
Right.
So that was the premise behind the program, was why sell it for $5 back to, the textbook companies? Why don't you just give it to us? And if everyone continues to do that every semester, you're going to get benefited eventually, because there's going to be a book in here that you need if we can get this off of the ground and kind of by veterans for veterans.
Absolutely.
You donate in because at some point you're going to benefit from this program.
Give
and
it forward.
Taking off. I think the last time that I had checked into it, they had about 450 books in there.
Beautiful.
Something like that.
How many veterans, do you know how many veterans are a part of y'all's resource center, or there at Auburn as a whole?
Kind of a tricky number. I know that we advertise we have 1,200, right at 1,200 on benefits, but not all of those are necessarily student veterans. There's only a small percent. I think it's closer to 400. Don't quote me exactly on that number, but it's somewhere around there.
Right.
The rest are dependents of veterans. So,
right.
At that end, now it's some veteran's child that we're helping out. So
exactly,
by proxy, we're helping the veteran out too.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's all encompassing. So that's one of the things when we talk about the organizations that help veterans and first responders, in our mind, we're automatically talking about the veteran, the first responder, and their family members.
Absolutely,
because at the end of the day, it's all one family. And if we're supporting the spouse of a veteran, the child of a veteran, like Gratitude Initiative, education benefits, there's so many opportunities with the organizations that we have and are our 5 core beneficiary organizations, but also the organizations that we collaborate with and coordinate with to do different events, or just a referral network, right?
Or the ones that we just hear about that are doing incredible things.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's one of those that it goes full circle, and let's get into the Iron Ruck with your biggest rival, Roll Tide, Alabama. I mean, it leaves here's the beautiful thing. You've got War Eagle, you've got Roll Tide, And because of the commonality and the issues that veterans and first responders with suicide and bringing that awareness piece, the ability for y'all to collaborate on something that is truly epic, a 3-day walk, for y'all to do that for the Iron Bowl is incredible. And I really want to highlight what that entails and how that got started.
Yeah. It's probably it's the program I am most proud of. I got to see it from its infancy and come up. And I got to give huge props to one of my best friends, Kyle Venable. He was a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he was the president of the Student Veterans Association while I was the vice president. And he brought it to me one day, and he said, "Hey, I've got this idea, and this is kind of what I want to do." And he told it to me, and I looked at him, and I was like, "Oh, man, this is a hard sell, man. You want to do what?"
You want me to sell collaborating with our biggest rival? I mean,
well, not even that. The 151-mile march, I was like, man, how are we going to get, most of us are, not in playing shape anymore.
Right.
How are we going to do this?
How many people are we going to drop? We're going to need a huge safety vehicle on this one.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? He pitched it to me, and to his credit, he has got a way about him that can motivate anybody, and he got me to
drink the Kool-Aid, baby. Drank it.
He got me. He got me on that one. And I'm so glad he did, because that program was incredible. The way it really kind of got off the ground was we had this idea, here's what we want to do, and then we pitched it, and crickets. We didn't hear anything.
Who did you pitch it to?
Different levels throughout the university, different places, businesses to try and get sponsorships from.
Right.
A lot of different people, and it's kind of I feel like it was the biggest alligator syndrome. We were not the biggest alligator closest to the boat at the time, so
right.
We just didn't get a whole lot of buy-in at that. And, I'm sure other people were like, yeah, sure, you're going to do that, So we just kept pushing forward, and we kept going, and we just kept making plans. It's like, okay, if we get it going, this is what we're going to do. And, he put all this work into it, and, he would hand me something and go talk to these people and, figure out what you can do. So I really just started blasting off emails to different places throughout Alabama that I thought might be interested in supporting. It really was about a month out from when we were supposed to do the event that everything started snowballing, and like everybody started coming back at the same time saying, yes, we love this idea. Let's, what can we do? And we were like, well, we got a month, so there's a lot that needs to be done. We got to figure out how we're going to put all this together. I'll tell you, I think we went a week and a half before the event to actually scout the route and find the stopping locations, because it was so fast how everything just snowballed in,
right,
to get this thing off the ground. And once the University of Alabama had bought in, their Campus Veterans Association, once they had gotten bought into the program and they were excited about it, we knew we had something, and we were ready to really try and make this into a program. And that's where Kyle's genius just went. The meter went to 10 with him. He started figuring out, how do we symbolically start making these things connect? Well, the 22-pound pack, symbolizing the 22 veterans a day that we lose to suicide, was going to be symbolic for that. And then what we were going to do is, with the items that we packed into the pack, they weren't just going to be weight. They were going to be something that could be used by veterans somewhere across the state. So he started getting in touch with the veterans nursing homes in Alex City, and you'll forgive me, the name of it slips me, at the Bill Mickles State Veterans House. That's what it is. Got in touch with them. Hey, what could you guys use as donations? They gave us a list, and we spread that out to different people. These are the things we need, and that's what we packed our packs with. So at the end of the event, we unload the packs, put all the items into a donation box, and we take it to those veteran homes so that they have the supplies that they need to take care of this generation of amazing veterans that came before us that now needs our help just a little bit.
Absolutely.
Simple stuff such as toothpaste, socks, things that we take for granted all the time.
Absolutely.
And people were so generous to give us so much stuff that we ended up the next year having to find like a couple other places to donate to, because we kind of overdid it on the one. So we ended up
Good problem to
folding in
have.
a couple others. Do what?
Good problem to have.
Yeah, good problem to have. And at the end of it, we found that we had a little bit of money left over from the fundraising, so we just kind of split that money up and donated it to the different veterans programs as well.
Beautiful.
As the time has gone, we've done the second iteration of the event. Things were not as dirty. I'll say the first one was grimy, and it felt just like a Ruck march because it felt like there was, what's the plan again?
Right. Right.
Everything was just that way, and I loved it for that fact. The second year, they were way more organized. They had things in line. They were getting out publicity. They actually got on to the Paul Feinbaum show to reach a national audience to explain the plight that these guys are facing. We got I say we, but the Veterans Association from the year that I was gone, Justin Swab and a bunch of those guys, they were able to get in touch with the governor, and she actually declared the game day to be Operation Iron Ruck Day. And
Beautiful.
they're supposed
That's
to be
awesome.
delivering that proclamation here before long. I'm so impressed with the amount of work that these guys continue to do that makes real differences. And
Right.
that program for me is one that's very near and dear to my heart.
I love it because one of the things that I love about this is not just you now have a mission, right? You talk about Kyle and get motivated and the ingenious plan that he was able to start laying out, but the simple things like just giving you, hey, here's a list of individuals, go see what you can figure out. You do that with a service member, and you never know how amazing it's going to come back to you, right? I mean,
That's exactly right.
It's beautiful. But we see when it comes to the awareness piece, right? You're giving an actual, I love how y'all thought, let's not just put 22 pounds and have it in there in the rucks, right? Let's utilize something that is tangible that we can now turn around and help support other veterans, especially those that have laid the legacies that we have upheld, walked into and upheld from our greatest generations before. And, it's going to be something 10 years from now, 20 years from now, those individuals that are carrying this tradition on are going to be paying it forward to our generation, the generation of Desert Storm and in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we look at these old veterans that you see in a Walmart, and they're wearing the hat and they've got all the pins on and stuff like that. Back in their prime, those are some warriors. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, they have earned. They didn't have Twitter and Facebook. They weren't taking cell phones on a deployment. They weren't sending emails. They were handwriting notes to their loved ones in the mud, wondering if it's even getting back to their loved ones, right? I mean, you look at the Frozen Chosen, you look at Iwo Jima. I mean, you look at World War I, World War II, Korea, and it's such a different battlefield that we face. And you've got even Vietnam, you've got all of these individuals that didn't have this level of support, even though we have to continue to push the organizations and the companies and individuals alike to support those that have provided the ability for us to live in this free country, the greatest country on the planet. We have to continue to support them. And it's little things that through an event like this, we have the ability to not just say symbolically we're representing the 22 veterans that take their lives every day, which a large majority of that is that Vietnam era, because they didn't have the services we have now. They didn't have these organizations to really help assimilate you back into the civilian sector after seeing such horrific things in a time of war. So it's amazing, man. I absolutely love it. So how can people get involved? So you've got your textbooks, right? You've got your networking, which is critical, right? For the success of anybody, even if they didn't serve. Networking it's all about who you know, and those opportunities get you in the door, right? You've got something in a massive coordinated event, the Iron Ruck, with Auburn and Alabama's veterans. I love the fact that you even have a professional clothing locker to where you've got the ability to have individuals dress the part, go in there, and then say, hey, keep it if you need it, or, bring it back, because one of those individuals or multiple of those individuals are going to turn around, get a great job, be in a position to say, you know what, I'm going to go get a couple suits because I personally benefited from that. And I'm going to donate that back to where somebody else can have that same opportunity. And then the mentor program, the Vet Success Program, I absolutely love it. The fact that y'all are covering down on so many aspects that, quite honestly, we're just not taught, because the military has a very different setup than the normal progression of a civilian going from high school to college. All these things that are taken for granted, like what clothes to wear and what's appropriate at this venue, what's the dress code. We were all taught that. Again, we were all taught exactly what to wear, how to wear it, what to put on it, and what was appropriate at what venue. As a civilian, it becomes common knowledge, but we walk in and it's not common knowledge to us, and we just don't know what we don't know.
Starts out as guesswork for a little bit.
Yeah, and until somebody says, hey, brother, let's chat, because wow, you're wearing a web belt and some jeans and a polo. I don't think that one's going to cut it, man. So
we're going to have to fix you, superhero.
Yeah,
I've heard it.
So how can people reach out to you and the veteran organization there at Auburn? How can they get involved and make a difference?
Absolutely. We've got a couple of different ways. ASVAstore.com. I'm going to do this phonetically. It's Alpha, Sierra, Victor, Alpha, store.com. That's where we have all of our donations for Operation Iron Ruck situated at. While you're there, you can also look through the different bits of gear that we have. We've got some shirts and stuff that we sell to try and fund a lot of these programs that we do. That's for the Iron Ruck. If you're interested in looking at what the university has for these students, the different programs that we have, veterans.auburn.edu is a good place to go to see some of the things that we're doing, learn about who's leading the charge on these things. So those are the two main locations that we would send you to if you were interested in helping out with these programs.
And that was veteran.auburn.edu?
Yes.
Okay. And
veterans.auburn.edu.
Okay.
Yes.
Veterans.auburn.edu and ASVAstore.com. That's Alpha Sierra Victor Alpha store.com to get involved. Mike, I appreciate you, brother. It's been an amazing interview, an opportunity to speak with you, learn more about your story. And I want to leave and give you the ability, what would be your biggest piece of advice to somebody that's in that transition or find themselves, because I don't think the transition ever ends, right? We're just at different stages. We get longer in the tooth in it. But what would be that piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's transitioning out of the military back into civilian life? And it doesn't matter where they are in the country, but that one thing that you wish somebody would have told you earlier, or a piece of advice that you were given that really amplified your success.
I'm going to think on that for just a second.
Okay.
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would like to give to anyone that might be going through that transition is to find an anchor and be an anchor. Find someone that exhibits the things that you would like to be and continually try to work towards that. And once you do get to the point to where you feel comfortable, I've made it through this transition, the work doesn't stop there. Now you've got to be that anchor for somebody else, because it's, like you said, this is just a cycle that we all go through. And with us being brothers and sisters of arms, I think we owe it to each other to, once we receive that help, to turn around and give it back.
Absolutely. I love that. That is that is an incredible way of articulating it, Mike. And, that's what we're all about. We're all about serving others, being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And at the same time, you've got to have that self-care. You got to take care of your family. But I do a lot of reading these days, which I wish I would have had somebody slap me upside the head a little bit harder in my 20-year career, because I was eating crayons most of the time in my 20 years, right, as normal Marines do. But reading is feeding your mind, and you're constantly growing and gathering information from different points of view and different aspects. But being able to be an anchor for yourself, being able to be an anchor for somebody else, if you surround yourself with successful individuals, you're going to find yourself being more successful, because you're going to see those daily habits. You're going to see what they're involved in and how they're giving back. And they don't give back to say, look at me, look how much I'm giving. They're doing it quietly. The most successful ones are doing it quietly, because it's because of somebody else that was wildly successful. They attach themselves to you. You don't dictate, I'm going to be your mentor. You pick your mentors in life and in your career. So being able to live that and aspire to be greater than where you're at now, and then turn around and give back and watch the success of somebody else. I never was successful as a Marine, as a drill instructor. It wasn't because I was the best, the brightest, the fastest. It was because I loved on my Marines. I put their needs in front of mine, and I had phenomenal mentors that I paid attention to. And that was the key to my success. And being able, it sounds like what you're doing is you're living exactly what you're telling everybody else. And that's incredible. Mike, we're going to push this out to as many people. We love collaborating here at Bird's Eye View Project with different veteran organizations, different first responder organizations. That's what we do through the use of extreme sports. But our promise to you and our commitment to the veterans there at Auburn is to be able to push out as much information as we can on behalf of your university, the program there that supports the veterans, and let people know that Auburn has an amazing organization that's caring and taking care of their veteran community and their families, and people need to get involved. It takes dollars, right? It takes that commitment. So being able to push out your message, your events, whether it's individual participants or if it's sponsorships, I don't have a list of guys and gals with money that are like, man, Mitch, tell me where I can spend it. But the goal is to inspire one person to get involved, one person to seek help, one person to say, I'm in a position to help somebody else, and y'all are doing it the right way. So definitely look forward to moving this conversation into the future and collaborating with y'all. I would love to see Bird's Eye View Project as involved as we possibly can one day with y'all's Iron Ruck. I think that is absolutely huge. I think it's awesome what y'all are doing. And, we're just blessed to be able to have the conversation with y'all and to spread y'all's message.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, take care. Spread the love to everybody there at Auburn. And at the end of the day, go War Eagle.
War Eagle.
All right. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Mike.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Military Monday.
We want to thank Michael Patterson for spending some time with us today and sharing his story and valuable insight. Our mission here at Bird's Eye View Project is simple: serve those who serve us. We do this by supporting organizations like Gratitude Initiative and One More Wave, both providing unique services to our military and military veterans alike.
Send us your stories of a military hero to info@birdseyeviewproject.org so we can share it out with everyone.
Remember, love on one another, be kind to one another, and always serve those who serve us.